The day my child's secret altered our family forever. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My 14-year-old said 5 words that rewired my life. I'm Jordan, 39, night shift nurse at St. Martin's downtown, good at reading monitors and holding hands through the worst hour. My badge is scratched from years of disinfectant. My shoes smell like bleach and cafeteria coffee. I've gotten used to ringing phones and families who want time to stop. What I haven't trained for is my own kid standing in our dim kitchen, sweatshirt sleeves yanked over knuckles, whispering. I run that account. Riley wouldn't meet my eyes. The fridge hummed. The dog's nails ticked on linoleum. Tessa, my wife, froze with a spoon in the yogurt like she was trying to pause the scene. I set my lunch bag down and felt the old ER instinct kick in, triage the facts, stabilize the room. What account? I asked, voice low. Riley chewed the string on their hoodie. The one everyone's arguing about on Nextdoor and the school board meeting. The whistleblower. The word echoed against the cabinets. I pictured the posts, screenshots of padded invoices, a contractor overbilling the district, a photo of a parking lot handoff at 10:42 p.m. by West Annex. The account captioned everything with dates, amounts, and dry fury. It had already gotten a teacher suspended and a city inspector reassigned. Last night, someone threatened to sue whoever ran it. This morning, someone else promised to smoke out the liar. My heart thudded dull as a crash cart battery. You're saying that's you? I said. Riley nodded once, then pushed a folded paper across the table, an envelope with my name, a credit alert for a card I'd never opened. There's more, Riley said. They used your name to trap me. Our porch camera had caught a car idling last week. I had brushed it off as deliveries. Tessa's spoon clinked against the bowl. Jordan, we need a lawyer, she murmured, eyes on the envelope, not our kid. I could already see fluorescent lights, a waiting room, an officer's pen clicking. I could see the other future too. Silence, denial, pretend we didn't know. Both roads felt like losing. I took a breath that tasted like sour coffee and fear and told Riley to start at the beginning. Somewhere between their first word and the last, I realized this might end under a public projector. The projector would show our names unless I changed the ending tonight. Before Riley's sentence detonated our kitchen, our life was small and stitched by habit. I worked 12s, for nights on, 3 off. On my off days, I meal prepped beans and rice, wrote lunch notes with dumb puns, and walked our dog around the block twice, because once wasn't enough for his ego. Tessa curated the calendar with color codes and posted sunset photos with captions like, gratitude today. We fought over lights left on, screen time limits, and whether a C+ in algebra meant laziness or an overloaded brain. On Sundays, we played rummikub at Aunt Alma's tiny apartment that still smelled faintly of cedar shavings. Alma told Riley stories about when you could vanish for a day without anyone tracking your steps. Tessa would smile politely and flip tiles with a controlled wrist. Privacy, to her, meant tasteful curtains. 2 weeks ago, Riley came home late and claimed debate practice ran long, voice flat as if reading from a teleprompter. I noticed the bus card history later. Tap off at West Annex at 9:11 p.m., not the school. I shrugged, because kids take detours, and I wanted to be the parent who chooses trust. Last Friday, a neighbor sent a masked screenshot of that whistleblower account to our HOA group. Anyone know who's behind this? They're destroying good people. Tessa typed concerned and hit post. Riley watched me read it and asked for more salt. We were all pretending not to notice the smoke under the door. Now, replaying it, I can see every tell. The way Riley stiffened when the doorbell rang. The panic-crumpled receipt found in the dryer lint trap for $48. 73 at Maple Pharmacy, the locked notes folder, the charger Riley guarded like a passport. When I asked if everything was okay, Riley said, I'm managing, which is what patients say seconds before they crash. Tessa kept saying optics. Do not get us dragged online. Keep this quiet. I kept thinking first, do no harm. Both of us were certain, and neither of us was right enough to win. Then my phone buzzed with a number saved as school, only it wasn't MS. Patel this time, and the voice used my last name like a warning. The caller said my child had crossed a line we couldn't ignore. The voice belonged to Assistant Principal Duarte, formal and brittle. Mr. Caldwell, Several parents have forwarded posts and additional concerns. We need you and Tessa here tomorrow at 8. The call log stamped 7:04 p.m. The refrigerator clock blinked 2 minutes slower. I wrote the time anyway, because timestamps matter when stories go to war. After I hung up, I found my wallet half open on the counter and noticed a missing bank card, the backup Visa we kept for travel. I checked our account. No charges, no alerts beyond the credit inquiry that name-slapped me in the kitchen. Riley hovered in the doorway, then retreated when Tessa began stacking dishes in tight, furious piles. No phones tonight, Tessa said. Riley, put everything on the table. Riley put an old iPhone down like a decoy. I recognized the real one by the frayed cable burnished to their hand. Don't, I said quietly, softer than a rule. Riley's chin tilted. I'm protecting someone, they said, which sounded noble and reckless and painfully 14. Alma texted a minute later. No emojis, just, you okay? I typed, call, then deleted it. The front cam from last Tuesday showed the idling sedan again, 7:58 to 8:14 p.m. Silver Corolla with one hubcap missing. I'd labeled it delivery and moved on. I pulled the clip up and paused at a frame where a hand in a neon vest rested on our fence like it had a right to. I told myself we were safe. At 9:32 p.m., while Tessa stood at the sink rehearsing how to not cry in meetings, Riley's notes locked themselves after a wrong passcode. I need to know if this touches our mortgage, our licenses, our jobs, Tessa said. Her voice aligned, stretched guitar tight. It touches more than us, Riley said, and then something scraped outside like a foot testing our porch step. I crossed the living room and peered through the peephole. A white envelope lay against the mat. No stamp. Our surname printed in block letters with a Sharpie that bled a little. My name had been misspelled the same way as the credit alert. I opened the door, and the night smelled like cut grass and rain metal. I bent, picked up the envelope, felt something stiff inside, laminated, official, like a badge or a photocopied ID card. Inside was a photo of Riley with a timestamp and threat. At 8 sharp the next morning, fluorescent light pooled over the school office like cold milk. Ms. Patel, the counselor, had a mug that said human on purpose. She glanced at Riley's ankles, sock lines carved by nerves. Assistant Principal Duarte slid a printed screenshot across the table. The whistleblower post about a board member's brother's contract, annotated with arrows and a red circle around a plate number. This was posted at 9:47 p.m. last Tuesday, she said. A witness claims they saw Riley 2 blocks away minutes later. Tessa's smile was brittle, suburban. Mine was dead. I said, we're here to listen. Riley reached for the paper, then pulled back like it burned. Ms. Patel folded her hands. We aren't the police. But parents are scared. There are allegations of doxing. I should have said the word out loud, allegations, so Riley could see the space between rumor and conviction. Instead, I asked, what's the risk today? Duarte blinked. Suspension, pending investigation, for violating digital conduct and harassment policy. Tessa inhaled sharply. Riley says they're protecting someone. I added. Riley nodded, jaw tight, eyes on a bulletin board where a cutout said be the reason. My phone buzzed on silent. Unknown caller. Another text arrived, a low-res photo of our porch with the caption, Stay quiet, nurse night shift. The envelope's return address is the police station you finally deserve. I wanted to march Riley out, wrap them in a lead blanket, drive to Alma's, and start over. Ms. Patel said, we can do a safety plan. No discipline decision today if you agree to a device check. Riley stared at me. Tessa spoke first. Turn it in. Riley's hands hovered, then lowered to their lap. Not here, they whispered. Someone here is connected. Ms. Patel's mouth tightened. Duarte said, we can escalate. I pictured our mortgage, my license, the hospital's HR form where I'd checked I hadn't been investigated for misconduct. I thought of the envelope on our table and the misspelled name. I thought of the plate number circled in red. We'll bring the phone to the precinct at noon, I said. Chain of custody matters. Duarte blinked again, surprised I spoke their language. That's when Detective Ruiz appeared, already holding a printout with Riley's username. Ruiz didn't arrest anyone. He leaned on the doorframe like a man who trusted doorframes. We're mapping harassment clusters, he said mildly. Your account touched a nest of adults who don't like light. On the way home, Tessa drove with both hands at 10 and 2. We should lawyer up, announce nothing, Wait it out, she said. At home, Riley barricaded themselves in their room with a chair under the knob, fast and efficient like it had been rehearsed. I knocked. Open, please. Silence. Then the chair scraped, and Riley sat cross-legged on the floor by the bed. I promised someone, they said. If I talk, they'll be hurt. I lowered myself onto the carpet. Hurt how? I asked. Riley's eyes swung to the vent. A teacher's kid, they said. Medication, blackmail, threats of posting medical files. Tessa stood in the doorway with her arms wrapped around herself. Stop speaking in riddles, she said. We need specifics. Riley flinched. I lifted a hand. Boundaries, I said to Tessa. Well, listen, then ask. Tessa's mouth pressed flat. Aunt Alma arrived without knocking, set the kettle on, and put a hand on Riley's back. Truth is a mule, she said. I laid out conditions. We document dates. We keep copies off-site. We don't accuse by name without proof. Tessa exhaled hard. And we do not become content, she added, like it tasted poisonous. Riley pulled a microSD card from inside a sock and placed it on my palm. If I disappear online, this still speaks, they said. I felt its weight like a second pulse. We're not disappearing, I said, and believed it for one bright second. Then the doorbell rang, 3 hard knocks followed, and the kettle began to scream. I opened the door an inch. Cynthia from down the block stood with her phone angled low. Jordan, people are talking, she said. The board wants statements tonight. Please leave our porch, I said. This is a family matter. Cynthia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Families are the problem when kids weaponize lies, she said. I shut the door, slid the chain, until my eyes watered. From the hall, Tessa whispered, We can't be the headline tomorrow. Alma nodded toward the table. Then start writing the truth before someone else writes it for you, she said. A soft thud hit the door, and Riley whispered, They found me. The soft thud was paper. Another envelope, shoved under the door with board accuracy. Inside, a photocopy of an intake wristband from Maple ER, dated 2 weeks earlier, teenager's name blacked out, attending physician initialed JP. A sticky note in block caps, Keep quiet or we publish the rest. The wristband matched the crumpled receipt I'd found in the dryer lint. I took a photo of everything, time-stamped it, and forwarded copies to a fresh email I created on my old laptop. Riley watched, oscillating between relief and panic. Chain of custody, I said, more to steady my own hands. Tessa said, Enough. You promised to tell us everything, and held out her palm. Riley slid the real phone into it, shaking. We sat at the table like 3 bomb techs. I opened files, scrolled through exports, PDFs of invoices, text logs, bus card histories, and a video named West_Annex_2242. MOV. The clip showed a man in a neon vest taking a padded envelope from a woman in a navy fleece in the staff lot. The man wore a lanyard with a city badge. The woman drove the same silver Corolla missing a hubcap. Their faces turned just enough for the camera to catch profiles. The date stamp matched the whistleblower post. Riley whispered, He's the board member's brother. I pressed pause, then notes. The locked folder warned I had 3 tries. Riley unlocked it with trembling thumbs. Inside, drafts of posts Riley never published because the kid they were protecting didn't want their parent outed. There were clinic summaries for medication pickups, cash only, all at Maple Pharmacy, a chat from Nix threatening to leak records if the account posted again, and a message requesting money wired through a prepaid card, with my name and partial SSN embedded in a registration screen. They used your info to register the card, Riley said. Tessa's chair scraped back. We are absolutely done, she said. We go to Ruiz at noon, then we hire Carter, and we shut your account down. Riley's mouth quivered. If I shut it down, Nix will post the clinic files, they whispered. I copied the video to a fresh microSD and slid it back to Riley. Alma nodded once. We move careful, she said. But we move. Then my hospital pager vibrated with a name I dreaded seeing again. At 11:58, we pushed through the precinct's glass doors carrying a shoebox with the phone, the microSD clone, a printed index of files, and Alma's careful handwriting describing where we found each item. Ruiz met us by the vending machines. He had the sort of tired smile nurses recognize, a man whose day starts with other people's midnight. Chain of custody, he asked. I handed him the envelope. He sealed it with dated tape, then asked who Nix might be. "We think a contractor middleman," I said. "Maybe attached to facilities bids." Riley's hoodie swallowed their jawline. Tessa stood like a portrait frame. Perfect posture, perfect fear. We signed the property receipt. Ruiz plugged the phone into a Faraday pouch and glanced at our index. West_Annex_2242. MOV, bus_taps_CSV, maple_X_receipts, DM_threats. "You kept logs," he said to me. "I measure fluids in milliliters," I said. "Dates are just another unit." He nodded, then looked at Riley. "You believe you're protecting someone. I need to know if the someone is a minor." Riley swallowed. "Yes," they said. "A classmate whose parent works for them." Ruiz wrote 3 slow words. "If medical records were threatened, that's felony territory. And if an adult exploited a child to conceal fraud, that's 2 felonies. Tessa's knuckles went white around her bag strap. "Detective," she said, "we can't survive a dragged-out scandal." He didn't flinch. "Sometimes the fastest way through a fire is through," he said. He promised to follow up that afternoon with a cyber unit officer and slid us a card with a case number. As we turned to leave, a woman in a navy fleece with a school ID lanyard rounded the corner. She froze when she saw Riley. Riley froze when they saw her. The silence bellied the hallway. She was the driver from the parking lot video. Ms. Patel stepped from a door behind her, eyebrows raised, voice careful. "Jordan, may we talk privately?" Ruiz's posture changed by a degree only professionals notice. "Everyone can speak, but the room has one recorder," he said. "MS." Patel lifted her hands to show she carried nothing but a pen. "Then I need to say something under that recorder," she said, and her next sentence made Tessa gasp aloud. "The board's brother is extorting me, and your child is covering the witness." Ruiz guided us into interview 2, where gray walls met a metal table that had endured years of keys and wedding rings tapping out nerves. Ms. Patel stared at the tabletop, then at Riley. "I recognized you at the annex," she said. "I hoped I was wrong." She inhaled, then turned to the recorder. "My name is Priya Patel. I am a mandated reporter. 2 weeks ago, a 9th grader confided their parent, contracted through facilities, had demanded they deliver sealed envelopes after hours. When they refused, he took their daily meds and said he would lose them for good. The student panicked, told me, and then backed off, terrified. I collected what documentation I could. I didn't go to the board because the board member's brother is the parent in question." She folded a paper napkin into a ship and flattened it. "I told Riley in the hallway the day after, without names, that I feared the student would be punished silently. I didn't ask them to post. I would never." Riley whispered, "I found the pattern anyway." Tessa rubbed her temple like she could smooth the world. "Is this why the Maple ER wristband?" I asked. Ms. Patel nodded once, grief-packed. "An anxiety attack. The student hyperventilated in my office. I drove them. The parent showed up later, screaming HIPAA at air." Ruiz scribbled. "Why didn't you come to us?" he asked. Ms. Patel's mouth shaped a hard, silly smile. "Our last 2 reports about this family vanished between desks." Alma muttered, "Doors and drawers eat truth." Ruiz tapped the table. "All right. We set a controlled disclosure. We loop in youth services, cyber, and the city attorney. No names leave this room except on paper. Jordan, can you export your copies to our drive?" I nodded. Riley looked smaller and older by decades. "I used my parents' info to register a prepaid," they said suddenly, guilt warm and choking. "To bait the contractor. I didn't know the system would lock in his social." I laid a hand on theirs. "You were 14 trying to stop a grown man," I said. "The grown man made the choice." Ruiz raised a hand for quiet as his phone buzzed. "They're moving tonight," he said, eyes sharpening. "A meeting at the neighborhood center, 7 p.m., and our players will be there. If you attend, every mask comes off in front of your neighbors." 7 p.m. had always been our quiet hour, supper plates clacking, a dog sighing, the ordinary holiness of a family ignoring news. This time we dressed like we were going somewhere cold. Alma wore her church coat, though it wasn't Sunday. Tessa clipped her hair into the tidy knot she used for funerals. I put the shoebox under my arm with a fresh index on top, leaving the originals with Ruiz's team. Riley asked if they could speak if needed. I told them truth would be heard, but adults had to take the heat first. The neighborhood center gym buzzed with folding chairs and coffee breath. A banner read, "Community Transparency Night," as if naming a thing made it behave. On the dais sat the board member, lips pursed into concern. Beside him, his brother in a too-new suit. Behind them, the facility's contractor with a clipboard he never wrote on. Ms. Patel stood near the side wall with a youth services officer and a woman from City Legal, both grimly attentive. Ruiz was a shadow by the exit. A moderator tapped the mic. "This is an open forum," he began, and was drowned by mutters of "witch hunt" and "do your job." Tessa's fingers twitched toward mine. I gave them. The board member called for civility. His brother nodded with a martyr's sigh. After 3 softball questions, Alma rose. Her voice didn't carry far, but the room hushed out of respect for age. "If you're so transparent," she said, "tell us why city staff meet you in lots at night." Laughter, then a crack of silence. The brother's smile faltered. "Ma'am, rumor mills. We prefer records to rumors," I said, walking to the aisle mic. I gave the moderator a USB, the index printed on hospital letterhead. "Time-stamped video," I said. "Receipts." A text threatening to publish protected medical info if a social media account posts again. The board member's face went careful, that official neutral reserved for funerals and elections. "This is an ambush," he said. "No," Ruiz said, stepping forward. "This is a meeting with a recorder." The brother stood, so suddenly his chair jumped. "You can't play stolen footage," he snapped. The youth services officer spoke, steady. "We can play evidence consented by its owner, recorded in public areas." The projector hummed alive, hungry for an image. I found Riley's hand and squeezed. On the screen, the silver Corolla appeared, the missing hubcap a grin with a tooth gone. The man in the vest turned his face straight toward the camera. Gasps moved like a weather front. Someone whispered a name. Others shushed, then repeated it anyway. The man in the neon vest, city badge visible, our contractor, accepted the padded envelope. The timestamp glowed, 22:42. The brother shifted behind the dais, jaw pulsing. The youth services officer paused the frame where the padded envelope changed hands. "We'll let the rest play after witnesses speak," she said. Ms. Patel stepped to the mic, voice quiet but scalpel true. "I cannot name a child," she said. "I can confirm that I filed a report regarding coercion and withheld medication. I can confirm that, after that report, I received pressure to revise it." Her eyes met the board members, then dropped. The brother laughed once, showy. "Is that what this is? Parenting disputes and blurry videos?" Alma murmured. "Blurry is what guilt calls clarity." Tessa's phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. "Take your brat home, or we publish your ER incident too." She flinched. "They have our visit history," she breathed. I swallowed the urge to sprint for the doors. Instead, I opened the shoebox and retrieved the printed prepaid registration with my partial SSN. "This is my name on a card I never opened," I said. "Registered from an IP address belonging to the facility's contractor's office." The room hissed. The contractor's face flushed a slow sunrise. He pointed at Riley. "That kid runs a smear account," he said. "They doxed me." Ruiz didn't blink. "Address on your invoices is public," he said. "Threatening to post medical details isn't." The projector resumed. The woman in the navy fleece, Ms. Patel's colleague, glancing around, then sliding the envelope, the man palming cash like it was a handshake. The board member grabbed the mic. "We will not litigate tonight," he said, voice breaking in the wrong places. "We will not let rumor mongers jeopardize vital services." Riley tugged my sleeve. "He's texting," they whispered. The brothers' thumbs were moving under the table. On my phone, an email landed from Nix with a subject line, "Final warning." Attached was a blurred photo that turned sharp when I breathed. Our porch, my name on a manila envelope, and a second image I recognized too late. The Maple ER lobby camera catching Riley's reflection at the vending machine. "If you speak again, we post the child's medical file before sunrise." The room's sound dimmed like someone had shut off the oxygen. I showed Ruiz the email. He didn't look surprised. He looked ready. "We needed him to signal," he said. "Now we can move." He tapped his radio twice. 2 officers rose from opposite corners and walked, unhurried, to the aisle. The youth services officer lifted a hand. "We're pausing public comment to protect a minor," she said. "This is no longer a forum." The projector blinked to the city's generic screensaver, blue waves that promised calm nobody felt. Tessa squeezed Riley's shoulders so hard Riley winced. She loosened her hands like a prayer. Alma stepped forward with a little spiral notebook, the same one she used to track rent hikes in the 80s. Names change, tricks don't, she said. Miss Patel looked at me. We can still choose how Riley speaks, she said. A written statement entered to record, not read aloud. Riley nodded, relief and disappointment wrestling behind their eyes. Ruiz tapped the contractor's shoulder. Sir, we have a warrant to search your office devices for communications associated with the alias Nix, threats involving protected health information and fraudulent financial instruments, he said. The contractor sputtered. The brother rose, palms out, performative disbelief sliding into something uglier. This is political. This is criminal, Ruiz said, and the first cuff clicked, not on the brother but on the contractor, who jerked and swore. In the back, a woman cried. Somewhere, the coffee urn hissed. The brother tried to move toward the exit. An officer blocked him, not touching, an immovable warning. City Legal stepped to the mic and said the 5 words that turn meetings into courtrooms. We advise you to cooperate. The board members slumped. People who had muttered earlier stared at their shoes. Tessa pressed her cheek to Riley's hair. We're almost through, she whispered. My phone buzzed again, a text from a number I didn't know. You think cuffs stop leaks? Check your mortgage before bedtime. I felt the floor tilt like a gurney with a bad wheel. At home, our mailbox would be full of paper we couldn't afford not to read. Ruiz read my face and nodded. We'll escort you out back, he said. Go home. Lock down accounts. I'll come by with a statement draft. As we reached the exit, Ms. Patel touched my elbow. There's one more thing you should see, she said softly. The student's parent isn't his father. He's the brother's debtor. Back home, the dog whined at the smell of our adrenaline. I dumped mail on the table, 2 window envelopes with red stripes, and 1 hand-addressed card that made Tessa swear. The window envelopes were a notice of intent to place lien for a prepaid account in arrears. Nonsense legalese snarling around my name. The hand-addressed card was worse, a printed screenshot of a post-draft from Riley's notes, unposted, and a sticky note that read, You decide which truth hurts less. I set it aside and opened the laptop. Alma brewed tea with the seriousness of an operating nurse. Riley hovered, then perched on the counter like a small bird learning the edge of a branch. MS. Patel's message arrived, a scanned statement from the student, with a counselor's signature and date, detailing medication withheld and instructions to deliver envelopes to the annex, followed by a second page where the student wrote the sentence that bent my ribs. He says my mom owes his brother and money makes rules. The his had an arrow, contractor. The brother had a printed name, the board member's brother. Tessa sat, very straight. This will eat our week, our year, she said. But we can live with sunlight. I typed Riley's statement with them line by line. Dates, locations, receipts. I believe posting evidence without names would pressure adults to do the right thing. I am 14 and did not intend to harm anyone. Ruiz texted that the contractor's office machines contained the alias Nix, several drafts targeting our family, and IP logs matching the prepaid card registration. We're moving to seize his cloud drives, he added. The brother is calling lawyers. Our porch camera pinged. A car idled, then left, cowered fast. I checked the cloud feed 3 times to be sure. Alma angled the blinds and hummed, the tune she used when she pulled splinters in our childhood kitchen. Tessa set out bowls though nobody was hungry. When the knock finally came, it wasn't police or press. It was the board member's wife, alone, eyes swollen, sweatshirt inside out. Please, she said, voice rope burned. I didn't know. I can prove he lied about the bids. He used our child's diagnosis to win sympathy and hide the theft. She stood in our entry like a storm that forgot its thunder. We cleared space at the table because that is what families do. Even for strangers, even for enemies, we make room at the table. She slid us copies. Internal emails between the brothers, texts where Nix bragged about muzzling a meddling kid, calendar entries labeled innocuous things like trash pickup that aligned with our bus card taps, and my breath stopped. A draft statement to the press framing the whistleblower account as a cyberbully campaign targeting a family with medical challenges. He had planned to parade a diagnosis, his own child's, to deflect scrutiny. The wife's hands shook. I kept thinking he was protecting us, she said. He was protecting the angle. Ruiz arrived mid-explanation. He took the packet, scanned, whistled low. This accelerates things, he said. City attorney will move tonight. Tessa's anger softened into something steadier. We will not let your child be a shield, she told the wife. Riley exhaled like they'd been underwater a week. Then my phone rang. The hospital. Short-staffed again. A code black downtown. Could I come? For a second, the floor of my life split. Parent or nurse. Home or ward. Both emergencies, neither forgiving. Alma touched my shoulder. Go, she said. People need you there. People need you here too, and we will be here. Tessa met my eyes. We had argued so many times about me staying late, staying kind, staying tired. She nodded. We'll finalize statements with Ruiz, she said. Come back when you can breathe. I grabbed my badge, kissed Riley's forehead, and stepped into night air that smelled like rain against hot concrete. On the drive, I rehearsed what I would tell my charge nurse if press called the unit, how I'd answer when someone asked if I raised a vigilante. At a red light, a final message buzzed from the Nix address, probably sent before the warrant. Last chance. Silence or regret. I deleted nothing. On break at 2:11 a.m. Ruiz texted one line that felt like a defibrillator. Warrant served. Brother detained for questioning. Contractor in holding. When I came home at dawn, the porch was empty except for one thing I hadn't expected and couldn't ignore. A notice taped to our door. Mandatory district hearing, suspension pending. Not discipline. Ms. Patel clarified over speakerphone. Procedure. But it will look like guilt if you don't show. The hearing was scheduled for noon. I showered the smell of antiseptic and adrenaline off my skin and put on the only blazer I own. Tessa wore a cardigan like armor. Riley dressed in their debate tournament best, hair brushed till it shone with stubbornness. Alma tucked her notebook in her purse and patted the dog like a talisman. In the conference room, a panel of administrators arranged water bottles into rows. A district lawyer read accusations in an even tone that always makes people feel criminal. Violations of digital conduct, she said. Potential harassment of staff. We submitted Riley's statement and Ms. Patel's, then the city's letter confirming an active criminal investigation into threats involving protected health information. The room shifted. Law covers tables like a heavy tablecloth. Once spread, everyone moves differently. Riley read one sentence aloud because they asked to own their voice. I wanted adults to stop a dangerous pattern without ruining a child. The lawyer's expression cracked into something almost human. We will lift the emergency suspension, she said. We will require counseling and a digital safety contract. Riley nodded. I nodded. Tessa nodded so hard it teetered into a sob. She covered it by asking logistical questions about review dates and portal flags. After, in the hallway, we ran into the board member, gray around the edges. He didn't make eye contact. The wife stood behind him with a folder and a stare that could cut rope. Alma leaned close to me. Boundaries, she murmured. They don't happen to you. You build them. That night we sat at our kitchen table and wrote an agreement like we were writing the rules of a new country. No anonymous accounts without an adult's oversight. Automatic export of chats to an encrypted drive. Family therapy weekly for 8 weeks. A list of safe adults Riley could text when panic hit. A rule that I would not read every breath, but would ask when something smelled like smoke. We all signed. I scanned it, dated it, printed copies. The fridge hummed. The dog snored. The house felt like it was exhaling a little. Then our doorbell rang again, and this time it wasn't a threat, a notice, or a neighbor with curiosity disguised as kindness. It was the student, flanked by Ms. Patel, asking to speak to Riley privately. We made cocoa because making cocoa is what decent people do when the world has demanded too much from a child. The student, small for their age, hoodie sleeves longer than their arms, sat at our table and kept their eyes on the steam. Ms. Patel stayed by the doorway, a quiet sentinel. I'm sorry, the student said to Riley. I told you to stop posting, and you kept me safe anyway. Riley shook their head. You kept yourself safe by telling Ms. Patel? They said. I just shouted when adults tried not to hear. The student slid a folded paper across the table, a list of dates and times when their parent took them to the annex, and a photo of the lost pill bottle stashed behind paint cans in their garage. I'm ready to tell the rest, they whispered. I looked at Tessa. She looked at me. For months we'd argued about who we were as parents, protectors, enforcers, narrators, audience. Now our job felt simple and endless. Make a space for truth and guard the doors. Ruiz texted that charges were being prepared. Coercion, witness tampering, unlawful threats involving medical information, fraud. The board member's brother would be arraigned. The contractor would face counts that didn't fit neatly on screen. The board member himself, censure hearing pending. I pictured our city learning its own face on the projector and felt something like relief that included sadness for every person who wanted an easier story. We drove the student and Ms. Patel to the precinct to submit their statement, then came home to a house that smelled like cocoa and paper. Riley taped our family agreement to the inside of the pantry door. Alma tucked her notebook away and announced she was baking banana bread because grief needs crumbs to follow out of a forest. Tessa leaned her head on my shoulder and, for the first time in weeks, didn't look like she was bracing for impact. I washed 2 mugs and dried them slowly. I thought about the 5 words that rewired my life, and how sometimes the only way to love a child is to stand with them inside a hard light and say, I'll stay. I thought of other parents scrolling tonight, measuring fear against decency, and wanted to hand them our map so they wouldn't feel alone. So here's what I'd tell you, if you're reading this right now. Start a paper trail today, and believe the brave child right in front of you.